Dawn breaks over the late Cretaceous plain, the same way it has broken every morning for the last 66 million years. The air is warm already, thick with moisture, heavy with the smell of fern and river mud, and the particular richness of a world that has had no winter in 40 million years. Mist rises from the shallow river that crosses the plain from west to east. Along its banks, the first animals of the morning are moving. A herd of Edmontosaurus, 8 of them, the largest nearly 9 meters long, grazing on the far bank with the patient rhythm of animals that have been doing this since before the Rocky Mountains existed. At the forest edge, 20 meters inside the tree line, a juvenile Tyrannosaurus rex is watching the herd. 2 years old, barely 2 meters long. The skull, not yet the weapon it will become. The legs not yet calibrated to the distances they will one day cover. Too small to hunt. Too inexperienced to position correctly. But old enough to watch. And in this world, in this ecosystem, watching is how everything that will eventually matter begins. The juvenile has been at this tree line since before dawn. It is not alone. 30 meters further into the shadow, completely motionless, the adult T-Rex has been watching the same herd for 40 minutes. 12 meters long, 8 metric tons, the largest land predator that has ever existed on this planet or will ever exist again. The skull alone is 1.5 meters, a structure so massive that engineers will spend decades arguing about how something this large moves at the speeds the fossil record proves it reached. The jaw generates 8 tons of bite force, enough to crush the femur of a triceratops, enough to bite clean through solid steel. The arms, those arms, the ones that every human who has ever stood in front of a T-Rex skeleton has quietly noticed, are not vestigial. They are the strongest arms relative to their size of any predator in this ecosystem. They cannot reach the mouth. They were never designed to reach the mouth. They are designed for one specific purpose that will become clear when the moment comes. The T-Rex has been in this shadow for 40 minutes, not hiding. Nothing this large hides. Simply still, in a patch of shade at a distance. The Edmontosaurus herd can almost resolve into a definitive threat, but not quite. Their nervous systems are generating the cortisol response of animals that believe they are in danger, but they cannot confirm it. And confirmation is what triggers the sprint. The T-Rex is waiting for one of them to decide the shadow is not there. The olfactory system processing the herd right now is the most sophisticated biological instrument in the late Cretaceous world. The region of the T-Rex brain dedicated to smell is larger than the entire cerebrum. A single drop of blood dissolved in an Olympic swimming pool of water is detectable. From the herd, 300 meters away, the specific scent signature of all 8 animals, their age, their health, their fear chemistry, the slight elevation in stress hormones from the second largest adult that indicates a recent injury. The particular way that scent changes when an animal makes a decision, when the body commits to movement before the legs have been told to move. The decision will be smelled before it is seen. It always is. The juvenile watches the T-Rex watch the herd. It has been doing this for 40 minutes. Watching the stillness. Watching the specific angle of the head as it processes wind direction. Watching the absolute economy of movement. No adjustment. No shift of weight. No acknowledgement of the insects that have landed on the snout and been ignored. The juvenile's own nervous system finds this stillness almost impossible to maintain for 40 seconds. The adult has maintained it for 40 minutes. This is how knowledge transfers in a species, without language, not through explanation, through presence, through the simple act of being positioned beside the thing you will one day need to become, and watching the youngest Edmontosaurus breaks first. Not running, just stepping. One step toward the water, head lowering toward the surface. The unbearable thirst of an animal that has been on high alert for 40 minutes, finally winning the calculation against the unbearable uncertainty of the shadow in the tree line. The step is enough. The T-Rex moves. Not a roar. Not the theatrical explosion of sound that every film ever made about this moment insists on. What happens is that 8 tons of animal that has been motionless for 40 minutes begins to accelerate with an urgency that has no business existing in something this large, each stride covering 5 meters of ground. The footsteps compressing the earth 4 centimeters deep, the sound arriving at the herd a fraction of a second after the visual. By then, the calculation is already running in 8 nervous systems simultaneously. The herd breaks in every direction, each animal choosing its own geometry of survival in the first 0.3 seconds, committing to a direction before the full information is available. Because waiting for full information is not an option when what is behind you is what is behind them. The T-Rex does not follow the animals going south, does not follow the ones entering the river. The second largest adult, the one carrying elevated stress hormones, the one with the injury, has gone north. The T-Rex cuts the angle, reading the terrain for the feature identified 40 minutes ago. A depression in the ground 200 meters north, where the grass is longer and the footing is uncertain, and an animal compensating for injury will slow. The T-Rex slows before the depression. The Edmontosaurus does not. The kill takes 11 seconds from the moment of contact. The arms grip during the bite, holding the animal in place for the 0.4 seconds the jaw requires. That is what the arms are for. Not for reaching the mouth, not for display. The specific mechanical function of securing a prey animal during the instant of maximum force. The plane goes quiet. Then loud again, ravens descend from the tree line. A pair of Dromaeosaurus that abandoned this corridor at dawn circle back from the south. The insects continue. The river continued. The surviving Edmontosaurus, 600 meters south and still moving, slow from sprint to trot to cautious walk without looking back. The world reorganizes itself around the fact of what just happened. In the tree line, the juvenile has not moved. It watched the 40 minutes of stillness. It watched the moment the step happened and the T-Rex moved. It watched the angle, not the direct pursuit, but the calculated interception, the reading of terrain, the use of the depression. It watched the arms. It is 2 years old. It will spend the next 6 years making every mistake the T-Rex made 2 decades ago and has not made since. It will misjudge distances. It will commit too early. It will chase animals into terrain that costs more energy than the meal provides. It will learn each lesson the only way apex predators learn anything, by being wrong and surviving being wrong. But it will remember this morning. The T-Rex feeds for 3 hours. Ravens work the perimeter. The Dromaeosaurus wait further back. The juvenile remains at the forest edge, too small to approach, close enough to watch, burning the sequence of this morning into the circuitry that will govern the next 2.5 decades of its life. The afternoon comes with heat that presses down on the plain and makes everything slow. To the east, a pair of triceratops moves through the open ground, each 19 meters long. 3 tons, the frill behind the skull flushing deep orange in the afternoon sun. They pass 150 meters from the kill site. The T-Rex lifts its head and tracks them with a specific quality of attention that is not quite hunger and not quite indifference. A triceratops at full health is a calculation that ends differently depending on the variables, terrain, fatigue, angle of approach, whether the horns are facing toward or away. Today, after a successful hunt, in open ground, with the triceratops already aware and oriented, the calculation ends with watching them pass. The T-Rex lowers its head. Some prey is not worth the cost. Even the largest predator that ever lived makes this decision, especially the largest predator that ever lived, because the largest predator that ever lived has survived 28 years. By understanding that the difference between apex predator and dead apex predator is knowing which calculations to walk away from. The triceratops continue east without looking back. The plain shimmers in the heat. The juvenile, repositioned 30 meters east to maintain sightlines as the sun moved, watches the T-Rex watch the triceratops leave, processes this too, files it alongside everything else from this morning into the accumulating record of how this world actually works, not the version its instincts were born with, but the refined version that only direct observation produces. At dusk, the T-Rex moves northeast, toward the river crossing that large herbivores use at evening to move between the lowland forest and the elevated fern plains, a corridor known for 20 years. A corridor that produces, with the regularity of a tide, the specific combinations of animal and terrain and fading light that make the evening calculation different from the morning one. The T-Rex positions at the water's edge, motionless again. The same stillness, the same absolute economy of movement that the juvenile, following at 30 meters, has been watching since before dawn. The evening moves. The light flattens across the plain. The first animals begin to appear at the far bank. In the tree line behind the T-Rex, the juvenile settles into its own stillness, not hunting, not capable of hunting, but positioned the way it watched the T-Rex position this morning, downwind in shadow, with sight lines across the water. Its body is doing something its brain cannot yet articulate, practicing the shape of a thing before it understands what the thing is. The sun drops behind the western forest. The Cretaceous plain settles into its evening sounds, insects shifting registers, night birds beginning, the river moving over the same stones it has been moving over for longer than any animal alive today can imagine. The T-Rex holds its position at the water's edge. The juvenile holds its position in the tree line. The world continues. The bones are in Chicago. In rock that was once this plain, the same fern-covered ground, the same river, the same soil that once held footprint impressions 4 centimeters deep. The most complete T-Rex skeleton ever found was discovered in 1990 by a fossil hunter named Sue Hendrickson in the Hell Creek Formation of South Dakota, 50% larger than any T-Rex previously discovered, named after the woman who found it, Sue. Scientists who studied the bones found the healed fractures, 3 in the right foot, evidence of a life spent in contact with things that pushed back, found evidence of gout, of infection, of 28 years of being the largest predator in the most competitive ecosystem on Earth. Found growth rings in the bone recording 750 kilograms of growth per year during adolescence. 28 years old at death. Ancient for the species. They found one more thing, evidence that Sue was still growing when death came. Still adding mass, still becoming more of what she already was. The largest T-Rex ever found was not yet finished. Sue is in the Field Museum now, in a room built around those dimensions. And every year, millions of people stand in front of that skeleton and feel, briefly, wordlessly, something that is not quite fear and not quite awe, and is precisely what the oldest layers of the human nervous system were designed to feel in the presence of exactly what those bones represent. That feeling is not imagination. It is memory. For millions of years, the small, warm-blooded mammals that eventually produced every primate that ever lived survived the Cretaceous by knowing, below thought, below language, below everything that makes a human being human, exactly what a Tyrannosaurus Rex meant when it stepped out of a shadow at the edge of a tree line and went still. The juvenile that watched from the tree line this morning carried that knowledge forward. The mammals hiding in their burrows while the T-Rex fed carried it forward too. Everything that survived the world the T-Rex dominated carried some version of it, encoded in behavior, in instinct, in the specific response of a nervous system that learned, across millions of years of proximity to the largest predator that ever lived, exactly what stillness at a forest edge means. You inherited that encoding. You still have it. You felt it just now. You were always going to feel it.